let me start with this, I think, reasonable question that if you're just kind of tuning in and watching and you say, well, I don't know, and people always want to give their president and everybody else a break. First of all, it's in both parties, right? Republican and Democrat.
Yes.
This is not just an Obama thing. Second, how much clear and present danger are we in on infiltration? How deep? I mean, is this the worst? Is this the one that I saw, you know, for what, March 20th, where the guy comes in and he's, you know, meeting, bad guy, and then the Muslim Brotherhood come in? Is that it? Is that the worst?
No, and actually in the documentary tonight, Steve will talk about it's no longer infiltration, it's institutionalization. These people are right at the top of these task force, of these working groups conducting Islamophobia purges, this government-wide.
Well, that's why you were thrown out, right? I mean, or were you officially thrown out?
I was officially thrown out unofficially. I think you can put it that way.
Yeah.
Frozen out. There have been people who've made it their pursuit to make sure I don't become involved.
Right, and this was your job. I mean, you were at the Pentagon, you were the Inspector General. Your job was to go find these guys, and you did. You found a really nasty guy.
Well, I was tasked by the U.S. Senate to review the entire chaplain program 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the gentleman who founded the Muslim Chaplain organization was arrested at London Heathrow with $340,000 of Muammar Gaddafi's cash on him. Gosh. And he was subsequently convicted of a number of crimes, including a criminal conspiracy to help assassinate the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he is convicted, sentenced to 23 years in American prison. And he was the one who founded the Muslim Chaplain organization in the Pentagon.
Al-Moody.
His name is,
Who, by the way, was sent by the State Department and a goodwill representative from the United States to the Middle East.
Have you, because you were with Reagan.
Yes.
I mean, all of this is a rerun, just with different players, but it is a rerun of the Carter years and the Reagan years, except it's not Islamic extreme, it's not communist, it's Islamic extremist, but it seems to be the same play, it seems to be the same, exactly the same thing.
It's very much the same thing. Everyone now says we won the Cold War without remembering that there were huge fights within the United States and the West in general over the nature of communism and over the nature of the Soviet Union.
It's an evil empire, something that we can't say.
That's exactly when President Reagan said that in 1982, the lights went on because he restored the relationship between words and reality again. And he did it very deliberately, as Joe knows and the rest of you. And he said, I wanted them to know that I knew. And the Soviets were on alert, and having traveled later in the later days of the Soviet Empire, to see the hope that they gave the people in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe was extraordinary. And the danger I see today, if Steve talks about institutionalization, what's being institutionalized is this divorce between language and reality again that is being enforced by this administration by banning the word Islam or Islamist with any kind of violence or national security threat to the United States.
That section that we just played a minute ago, where all of the characters from this administration, they will not say Islamic extremist. They will not. They won't go there.
They won't let anyone else say it either.
And this afternoon, Kerry Pickett at the Washington Times reported that the FBI's counterterrorism lexicon doesn't even include Al-Qaeda in it. Their counterterrorism lexicon.
I think the tactics, too, that the Bolsheviks used, that the communists used, I think the tactics today are eerily similar with the Islamists. Infiltrate, number one. And number two, you never see them coming. Glenn, I have to tell you, I've sat across from these guys, Muslim Brotherhood operatives in Europe, in America, and I will tell you, these are not the guys with the beards and the AK-47 slung over their shoulders.
Oh, I know.
They are dressed like us. They are eloquent, they are Western educated, fluent in English. They're actually quite charming. And you can see how a naive, liberal, naive, liberal Western journalist falls for it every time, or a government official. They never see it coming.
There was a time.
Isn't that what's in the, isn't that the first phase of the project?
Yes.
Be likable.
Yes.
Be likable.
In the first phase, you are to be liked. It's not until later phases that you're supposed to become violent. There is a process they follow in doctrinal form called the Milestones process. And it was written by a man named Sayyid Qutb. Actually, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, spoke to it. This book that Patrick is holding, it says Methodology of Dawah on the cover. But if
What is it? What is Dawah?
Proselytization.
It's
The pre-violent phase of jihad.
Okay.
And actually, here in the book, right in the introduction, he says this is a game of strategy. We have to find out and create new friends for Islam and its cause on the side of the enemy. Inside and at the rear of the forces fighting against Islam and its emergence as a force anywhere in this world. This book is standard curriculum for any member of the Muslim American Society or the Islamic Circle of North America.
But that's not the real title of the book. Let me show you what the real title of the book is. It's not Methodology of Dawah. If the 1990 memo, the explanatory memorandum, came out in 1993, this came out a couple years before. It's Methodology of Dawah in America, and it applies the Milestones process to America. And so everything you see going on, be friendly now, but later it's not friendly. You will see happen.
How? You know, it's overwhelming because all of the pieces. I'm glad I believe in God, because I don't know any other way out of this than divine providence and divine protection. How do you even begin to dismantle what has been built?
Well, you start by just being courageous enough to tell the truth, to call it as you see it, and that's what an inspector general is paid to do. And it's just amazing that this recent letter from some congressmen to inspectors general, asking the inspectors general to factually describe how the Muslim Brotherhood has come in and infiltrated their respective agency, is treated as if somehow it's not what inspectors general do all the time. But that's a really good start. Get the facts, tell the facts to the American people, and treat them for what they are.
I said earlier this week that if we continue this course, and I'm always bad with time frames, but if we continue this course, it won't be long before this network or this particular show could not be done in America because of this. This is the push to ban defamation of Islam. This is what our president sounded to me like he was coming out in support of this week. I've never heard anything like this from an American president.
This administration has been receptive to that whole idea, without a doubt.
Yeah, you know, this goes back. You mentioned the OIC earlier.
Could you explain what the OIC is?
The Organization of the Islamic Conference is an organization that was formed in 1969 among the members of the Islamic world at the head of state level. There are 57 member states. We would say 56 plus the Palestinian Authority, but there are 57 states they designate. What becomes very important is when they make decisions at the summit level, it represents the decisions of heads of state. So that when you hear them say certain things or do certain things, they can tend to have the authority of the state. In 1993, they served the United Nations, the Cairo Declaration on Human Rights in Islam, where they authoritatively said the Muslim world defines human rights as Sharia. In 1999, they formally served the United Nations, the OIC Combating International Terrorism Accord, I can't remember the exact name, where they said we define terrorism exclusively in Islamic terms. They said it twice, the first two bullets in the document. What's important is in 2005, at a summit, meaning the head of state level, they came up with what was called the 10-year plan program of action to make defamation of Islam a crime in every jurisdiction in the world, including the United States.
What does that do to us?
It would, if it was implemented in the United States, it would subordinate the First Amendment of the United States to Islamic law through mechanisms they're creating that are generic in their sound at the UN.
This would be hate speech, what we're doing right now. And I interviewed a Brotherhood leader in Germany over the summer. Pleasant vacation in Deutschland, interviewing the Brotherhood. But Glenn, it was interesting what he said to me. I asked him about the caliphate, which we've talked so much about here on the Blaze TV. And he said, you know, the caliphate is kind of archaic now. What we're going to do as the Muslim Brotherhood is establish influence at the UN, through the OIC, at the EU. So what they want to do is they want the caliphate, absolutely, and they'll get it through military means as well, but they want to establish a legal framework for the caliphate at the UN, effectively in the OIC, and Steve, you talked about this.
This is the difference between, and I got to take a break, but let me just see if I have this right. This is the difference between Van Jones or Francis Fox Piven and Bill Ayers. This is the difference between the Weather Underground, which would be more like Al-Qaeda, and those who are just real dirt-strong progressives, which is more like the Muslim Brotherhood, right?
The only different tactics, that's it, same end game.
Right, but it's the same end game. One is just saying, we're going to do it slowly, we're going to slowly kind of boil this frog, and the other's like, kill the frog.
Exactly. And Steve actually has this book from IIIT, Hisham al-Talib's organization, and this is 1988, where they recognize the importance of using the OIC as a vehicle to promote the Muslim Brotherhood agenda.
Okay, back in just a second.